Welcome to the first episode of Songs for Democracy podcast. Songs for Democracy podcast explores songs furthering democratic values, reminding people why personal responsibility, vigilance, and action are key pillars of a democratic society. Democracy needs citizens to stay vigilant and responsible in order to last. When government has too much power and control over its citizenry, democracy withers away. Here we will share helpful articles about the history and value of art in politics and public discourse, as well as analyze song lyrics that focus on key democratic values from different perspectives. In today's episode, we begin with Chapter 1, Sound and Polis, Why Art Matters in Politics. From the lyre and the agora, music, literature, and the politics of ancient Greece, how art became the voice of social change. A comprehensive series exploring the intersection of aesthetic expression and political power. Then, we listen to an analysis of Maestro Circe's song, Freedom in Bucharest, a song that belongs in the tradition of Eastern European dissident literature, Havel, Milosz, Szymborska, translated into a popular musical form accessible to listeners who may never read those authors, but who recognize the feeling perfectly.
And now let's listen to Chapter 1, Sound and Polis, Why Art Matters in Politics. From The Lyre and the Agora, Music, Literature, and the Politics of Ancient Greece, How Art Became the Voice of Social Change, a comprehensive series exploring the intersection of aesthetic expression and political power. Chapter 1. Sound and Polis, Why Art Matters in Politics. In the beginning was not the word, it was the song. Before Athens had its democracy, before Sparta had its iron discipline, the Greek world understood that sound shaped souls, and souls shaped societies. The inseparability of art and civic life. The ancient Greeks inhabited a world in which art was never merely decorative or personal. Every poem recited, every melody played on the aulos, every tragedy performed in the theater of Dionysus was understood to participate in the larger drama of the polis, the city-state. To separate aesthetics from politics in the ancient Greek mind is to commit an anachronism, importing a modern dualism into a civilization that saw no such boundary. The word musique, from which we derive our own music, encompassed not merely melody and rhythm, but poetry, dance, and lyric expression as a unified whole. The Muses, the 9 divine daughters of Zeus and Mnemosyne, memory, presided over this unified domain. Memory and art were fused at the very origin of Greek consciousness, because memory was what held a community together. The songs one sang were not entertainment, they were the living archive of who you were as a people. This textbook explores that world with the care it deserves. It traces the precise ways in which music, poetry, drama, and song functioned as political instruments in ancient Greece, raising consciousness, challenging power, cementing ideology, mourning injustice, celebrating heroism, and, crucially, shaping the moral imagination of citizens long before any philosopher wrote a treatise on the good state. Why art is the ideal medium for consciousness. Before turning to specific texts and composers, we must answer a foundational question. Why is art, rather than reasoned argument, legal decree, or military force, the supreme medium for raising political consciousness and cultivating civic awareness? The ancient Greeks did not merely practice this truth. Their greatest thinkers articulated it explicitly. First, art bypasses rational resistance. A political speech can be disputed, its premises challenged, its conclusions refuted. But a song sung at a festival, a tragedy watched in collective astonishment, a poem memorized in childhood, these enter the soul through a different gate. They create emotional knowledge before intellectual opinion has a chance to form. Aristotle, in his Poetics, understood that tragedy achieves through catharsis what no legal argument can, a purging and restructuring of deep emotional life. Second, art creates community. When 12,000 Athenians sit together in the theater of Dionysus and watch Aeschylus's Orestia, they do not merely receive information. They breathe together, grieve together, exult together. They become, if only for the duration of the performance, a single body. Shared aesthetic experience forges bonds more durable than contracts. It is no accident that the great political transformations of history have always been accompanied by the great songs of their age. Third, art preserves what power wishes to destroy. Tyrants burn books and silence singers. The very consistency of their violence against art testifies to art's power. When Athenian democracy suppressed or co-opted certain forms of expression, it revealed by its actions that it understood what it was doing, managing the acoustic and literary environment of its citizens. The story of censorship in ancient Greece is, in inverted form, the story of art's political power. Fourth, art makes the abstract concrete, the distant immediate, the structural personal. Political philosophy can tell us that injustice is wrong. But only Sophocles can make us feel, in our own throats, the specific wrongness of Antigone's predicament. The distance between intellectual conviction and emotional mobilization is the distance between a treatise and a tragedy. Art closes that distance. Methodology and scope. This textbook proceeds through 12 chapters, each engaging a major genre, author, or theme in the intersection of Greek art and politics. We analyze specific poems, plays, songs, and musical traditions in their historical context, asking always, what work was this art doing in its society? Who did it challenge? What consciousness did it seek to cultivate? What response did it provoke from the powerful? We draw on archaeology, musicology, literary criticism, political history, and philosophy. We do not shy away from controversy. The political meanings of ancient texts are genuinely contested, and honest scholarship demands that we acknowledge disagreement. But we return always to the primary sources, the texts themselves, as our ultimate court of appeal. Music is a more potent instrument than any other for education, because rhythm and harmony find their way into the inward places of the soul, on which they mightily fasten. Plato, Republic, Book 3. This sentence from Plato is both a celebration and a warning. It is the thesis statement of this entire textbook. Rhythm and harmony enter the soul's inward places. They fasten there. To understand Greek politics, you must understand Greek music and poetry. To understand how consciousness is raised or suppressed in any society, you must understand its art.
Song analysis: Freedom in Bucharest from the music album Freedom in Bucharest by Maestro Cerci. Overview. This is a deeply layered protest song that operates on two historical planes simultaneously: the communist era under Nicolae Ceausescu and the post-1989 neoliberal transition. Rather than celebrating the fall of the regime, the song asks a harder question: did liberation actually arrive, or did oppression simply change its wardrobe? That central tension gives the song its moral weight and emotional staying power. Structure and form. The song follows a classic verse-chorus bridge architecture, but the chorus evolves meaningfully across its three appearances, each one adding new imagery while preserving the refrain. This is a deliberate craft choice. The repetition of "Freedom in Bucharest / was it ever ours to claim" mimics the cyclical trap the narrator describes. The audience hears the question asked 3 times and never answered, because it can't be. The outro breaks the musical pattern intentionally. It slows, softens, and shifts from anger to exhaustion, which is often more devastating than anger. Verse 1: Life under Ceausescu. Bread lines in the freezing dark / grandma whispering / don't you speak. The opening establishes the surveillance state through domestic intimacy rather than political abstraction. Grandma's whisper is one of the most economical images in the song. It communicates generational fear, the colonization of private family space by state terror, and the way repression was transmitted quietly from elder to child. Gray blocks / 1 TV / crowd kept quiet / eyes down / teeth. The fragmented syntax here is doing real work. These aren't full sentences, they're impressions, like traumatic memory surfacing in shards. Teeth standing alone is particularly striking. It evokes forced smiles, silent suffering, or simply what remains when language is stripped away. We learn to hide our tiny dreams / inside the lining of our sleeves. A beautiful metaphor for the interior life that survives totalitarianism. The diminutive tiny dreams is heartbreaking, not grand ambitions, just small human wants, smuggled inside the body like contraband. Verse 2: The post-1989 transition. This is where the song becomes more politically sophisticated than most protest music. They came smiling in clean suits / kissed our cheeks / then priced the land. The shift from Ceausescu's grey functionaries to suited investors is rendered with precise bitterness. The cheek kiss is a cultural detail that deepens the betrayal, intimacy weaponized for extraction. Now the shops speak foreign tongues / young hearts leaving on cheap flights. This captures Romania's post-transition reality, the mass emigration wave, the foreign capital that transformed cities while hollowing out communities, the brain drain that continues today. Cheap flights is a quietly devastating detail. The escape route is available, but only because labor is cheap enough to export. They say future on the screen / but my block crumbles every night. The gap between official optimism and lived material reality. Screens, both the communist TV of verse 1 and the modern media apparatus, remain instruments of managed perception. The chorus, its evolution. Each chorus preserves the core but deepens the accusation. First chorus, same cold finger / different name, pure structural critique. The finger of power changes its ring but not its pressure. Second chorus, you raise a glass to sacrifice / toast the poor, then raise the fee, the ceremony of solidarity as cover for economic predation. This is sharp political writing. Third chorus, you sell our sorrow / call it growth / count our scars like currency, the commodification of suffering. Trauma as GDP. This is the most devastating iteration. The recurring line, still pays rent to everyone but me * anchors the abstraction in economics. Freedom, the song insists, is not metaphysical, it's material. If you still owe everything to forces outside yourself, you are not free. The bridge, the heart of the song. I remember quiet songs at dawn / doors half closed so they won't hear / now the watchers changed their forms / but the watching's still right here. This is the philosophical core. The surveillance apparatus didn't disappear, it privatized. Algorithms, credit scores, landlords, bureaucrats, border agencies. The watcher changed clothes, the watch continues. Tell me / who decides my worth? / some far office / some soft chair / I just want a little earth / that answers only to my prayer. A little earth that answers only to my prayer is the song's most lyrical and poignant moment. It's a cry for sovereignty, not national sovereignty, but personal sovereignty. The right to exist on a patch of ground that no institution can price, revalue, or repossess. It resonates with both the rural Romanian tradition of land as dignity and with broader libertarian and humanist themes of self-ownership. The outro, deflation as resolution. So I light a match at night / hold it to the kitchen wall / if this is what you call set free / why do I still feel so small? The match is a micro-rebellion, and possibly a reference to a moment of private illumination, or even to the temptation to burn it all down. But the narrator only holds the match to the wall. The rage is contained. The question that follows, why do I still feel so small? Is the emotional climax of the entire song, precisely because it's so quiet. Soft accordion / tired street / old man humming / children laugh. The instrumentation returns to Romanian folk tonality. The old men still hum. Children still laugh. Life persists despite everything, and that persistence is both tender and unbearable. Freedom in Bucharest / walks alone along the tracks. The final image is masterful. Freedom is personified as a lone, solitary figure on train tracks, perhaps heading somewhere, perhaps not. It's not dead. But it's not home either. It walks alone, unclaimed, unhoused, still searching. Thematic synthesis. The song's deepest argument is that the form of unfreedom changed while the substance remained. It refuses both communist nostalgia and naive Western triumphalism. It speaks for the person who survived one system only to find themselves priced out of the next. Final assessment. Freedom in Bucharest is unusually accomplished for a protest song because it resists the comfort of a villain. There's no one to overthrow in the second half, the oppressor is structural, diffuse, smiling. The narrator doesn't call for revolution, they light a small match and ask a quiet question. That restraint is what gives the song its lasting emotional authority. It belongs in the tradition of Eastern European dissident literature, Havel, Milosz, Szymborska, translated into a popular musical form accessible to listeners who may never read those authors, but who recognize the feeling perfectly.
Thank you for listening and subscribing to this week's episode of the Songs for Democracy podcast. We hope you subscribe to this podcast and check out our other episodes as well as articles via our official website, songsfordemocracy.com. Our comments section below this episode includes a variety of helpful links and information as well. Have a wonderful week ahead.